Once upon a time in the busy streets of Enugu, there lived a young man named Emeka Okafor, a man everyone in his neighborhood admired. He was tall, handsome, and always neatly dressed in well-ironed shirts that smelled of expensive perfume. He owned a small but growing electronics company and had the kind of confidence that made people turn to look twice when he passed. Emeka loved to impress people. He liked when others talked about him, the car he drove, the watch he wore, the way he spoke English, and the beautiful wife always by his side. His wife's name was Chidinma. She was soft-spoken, with kind eyes and a calm voice that made people feel at peace. When they got married, everyone said they were the perfect match. Beauty and brains, love and success. Their wedding pictures were pasted everywhere on social media, and people used them as an example of what a happy couple should look like. In those early days, Emeka treated her like a queen. He would hold her hand while walking through the supermarket, tease her gently, and call her sweet names in front of everyone. "Baby girl," he would say, smiling proudly, "you are the most beautiful woman in the world. I'm lucky to have you." And Chidinma would blush, shaking her head shyly. "Stop it, Emeka. You're just saying that because you love me." But Emeka meant it, or at least he thought he did. Everything between them was perfect until the day she became pregnant. Chidinma was overjoyed when she found out. She held the test result and ran into Emeka's arms. "Emeka, we're going to have a baby," she said, her eyes shining with tears. He lifted her off the ground and spun her around. "Are you serious? My own baby? God, this is the best news ever." Those first few months were filled with excitement and laughter. Emeka would follow her to doctor appointments and post pictures of her growing belly online with captions like, "My queen is carrying our little prince or princess." People envied their love even more. But after childbirth, things began to change slowly. Chidinma's body was no longer the same. Her stomach stayed soft, her arms fuller, and her face rounder. She didn't fit into her old dresses anymore, and sometimes when she looked in the mirror, she didn't recognize herself. At first, Emeka didn't say anything, but little things began to show. He stopped complimenting her. He stopped posting their pictures. When friends visited, he talked more about his business than his wife. One night, while she dressed up for his friend's birthday, Emeka sat on the bed scrolling through his phone. Chidinma came out wearing a red gown she loved before pregnancy. She stood shyly, twisting her fingers. "What do you think?" she asked softly. Emeka looked up and frowned. That dress used to fit you better. Maybe you should wear something darker. Red makes you look bigger." Her smile faded. "But you used to say red was your favorite color on me." "I said that when it fit," he muttered, standing up. "Now it doesn't. Just wear something else." She tried to laugh it off, but her heart felt heavy. That was the first time he made her feel small. Days turned into weeks, and things grew worse. Emeka began to come home late, saying he was busy at work. When he did come back, he would stare at her body as if she was a stranger. One night, she prepared his favorite meal, egusi soup with pounded yam, hoping to make him smile again. She wore a wrapper and a light blouse, her hair neatly tied. When he came in, she ran to hug him, but he moved aside. "Emeka, welcome," she said softly. "I made your favorite." He looked at the food and sighed. "You know what? I'm not even hungry." "But you haven't eaten all day." "I said I'm not hungry," he snapped, his voice loud enough to make the baby cry in the next room. Chidinma rushed to carry the child, her hands shaking. "Please don't shout. The baby," Emeka interrupted, pointing at her. "Look at you, Chi. You've really changed. You used to be fine. You used to care about how you looked. Now see yourself." Her lips trembled as she whispered, "I just had a baby, Emeka. I'm trying." He scoffed and walked away. "Try harder." That night, she sat by the baby's cot, watching her little boy sleep peacefully. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. In that quiet room, her heart broke for the first time. She wondered what she had done wrong. The next morning, she tried again. She went jogging around their estate, sweating and panting until her legs shook. She stopped eating much, even when she felt dizzy. When Emeka noticed she was skipping breakfast, he said, "Now you're getting serious. Keep it up. Maybe one day you'll fit into your old jeans again." It was supposed to be a compliment, but it felt like a knife. Every day became a test. When she cooked, he complained that the food was too oily. When she dressed up, he said her clothes were too tight. When she stayed quiet, he called her boring. Nothing she did was ever right. Still, she loved him. She kept hoping the man she married would return. One Sunday after church, their friends gathered at their house for lunch. Everyone was laughing and talking, and someone joked about couples taking turns feeding each other. One of Emeka's friends nudged him. "Emeka, feed your wife now. Show us some romance." The room went silent when Emeka laughed and said, "Feed who? A bag. My wife will eat the whole plate before I blink." Everyone laughed, thinking it was just a joke. But Chidinma froze. She looked down at her plate, her eyes blurring with tears. After the guests left, she tried to talk to him. "Emeka, that wasn't nice. You embarrassed me." He waved his hand. "Oh, please, it was just a joke." "It wasn't funny," she said quietly. "You've been saying hurtful things lately." "Then lose weight," he said sharply. "Maybe I'll have something nice to say again." She stood there in shock. "Do you even love me anymore?" Emeka sighed and looked away. "Chi, I love you, but you need to take care of yourself. People are talking." "People?" she asked in disbelief. "So it's about what people say, not about how I feel?" He didn't answer. He just picked his car keys and walked out. That night, she lay on the bed alone, staring at the ceiling. Her mind was filled with memories of when he used to hold her and whisper sweet words. She missed that version of him, the man who once told her she was perfect. But the next morning, when she looked in the mirror, she realized something. No matter how much she tried, it would never be enough for him. Weeks passed, and the distance between them grew like a wall. He stopped calling her during the day. When she tried to hug him, he pulled away. He even started sleeping in the guest room, saying he needed space. One evening, she overheard him on the phone laughing. "Bro, I can't lie, I'm tired of her. She looks like someone's auntie now. I didn't sign up for this." Her heart stopped. She stepped back quietly before he noticed her. That night, she cried harder than she ever had. It was as if something inside her broke beyond repair. But she didn't shout. She didn't curse him. Instead, she packed her emotions deep inside and smiled in front of their son. She didn't want her child to grow up in a home full of insults and cold looks. She began to pray for strength. She prayed not to hate him. One afternoon, her friend Ngozi visited. "Chi, you look pale. Are you eating well?" Chidinma forced a smile. "I'm fine. Don't lie to me," Ngozi said softly. "You used to be full of life. What happened?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Emeka doesn't look at me the same way anymore. He says I'm not the woman he married." Ngozi sighed sadly. "Men like that never realize what they have until they lose it. You deserve better." But Chidinma still believed love could fix it. She planned to cook him a special dinner and talk things through. She wanted to remind him of their love, of all the dreams they once shared. That evening, she wore a simple gown that used to be his favorite color, blue. She tied her hair back and set the table with candles and soft music. When Emeka came home, he looked surprised. "What's going on here?" She smiled gently. "I just wanted us to have dinner together, like before." He sat down, looking uninterested. "Okay, let's eat." Halfway through the meal, she reached for his hand. "Emeka, please. I know things have been different, but we can fix this. I'll try harder to lose weight if that's what you want. Just don't give up on us." He looked at her coldly. "You keep saying you'll try, but you never change." Tears filled her eyes. "I'm trying to be the woman you fell in love with." He pulled his hand away. "Then maybe I fell in love with the wrong person?" Her heart stopped. She sat still, staring at him, unable to breathe. That night she didn't eat. She didn't sleep. She just sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker through her tears. The next morning, Emeka left early for work without saying goodbye. As she stood at the door holding her baby, she whispered to herself, "I still love him, but I don't know if that's enough anymore." The story of their perfect marriage was slowly turning into something else. A quiet war of pride, shame, and pain. And deep inside, a small voice in her heart whispered that something was about to break beyond repair. She looked at the food she had woken up early to cook and blinked back tears. She sat down slowly, her hands shaking. Everything she did now seemed to annoy him. She tried to make him happy, but it was like walking on broken glass. That day, while washing the dishes, she looked at her reflection in the kitchen window. Her face looked tired. There were dark circles under her eyes. She used to look so alive, so beautiful. Now she barely recognized herself. That afternoon, she called her friend Ngozi again. "Chi, how are you?" Ngozi asked. Chidinma sighed softly. "I don't even know, Ngozi. I'm trying, but Emeka doesn't talk to me anymore. It's like he hates me." Ngozi's voice softened. "You just had a baby, my dear. Maybe he's stressed. Maybe things will get better." "I hope so," Chidinma whispered. Later that evening, when Emeka came home, she ran to him again with hope in her eyes. "Welcome, my husband. How was work?" He shrugged. "Fine. I kept your dinner warm." He nodded. "I'm not hungry." She stood there watching him remove his jacket and walk to the living room. He turned on the TV and started watching a football match. She wanted to sit beside him like before, to talk and laugh, but he didn't even look her way. "Emeka," she said gently, sitting beside him. "Can we talk?" "About what?" "About us. You don't talk to me anymore." "Did I do something wrong?" He sighed heavily, still staring at the TV. "Chi, I'm tired. Please don't start this tonight." "Start what? I'm your wife, Emeka. You can't even look at me." He finally turned to her. "Look, Chi, you've changed, okay? You used to be so lively, so fine. Now I come home to complaints, baby cries, and this." He waved his hand at her body without even thinking. Her lips trembled. "So that's it? My body disgusts you?" He stood up angrily. "Don't twist my words. I'm just saying you don't look like you used to. Is it a crime to say the truth?" "It's not the truth," she said quietly. "It's cruelty." Emeka stormed into the bedroom, leaving her sitting there alone. The sound of the baby crying in the background filled the silence. The next morning, Chidinma decided to do something. She joined a small women's fitness group at the park. Every morning they jogged together, laughed together, and encouraged one another. She felt a little alive again. When she came home sweating and tired, Emeka looked up from his phone. "Where are you coming from?" "Jogging," she said, smiling. "I'm trying to lose some weight." He raised an eyebrow. "Good. Let's see if it works this time." She ignored the harshness in his voice and focused on his words. Maybe if she lost weight, he would love her again. Maybe he'd smile at her the way he used to. Weeks passed. She exercised daily, ate little, and avoided heavy food. Sometimes she felt dizzy, but she pushed through it. She wanted to prove to him that she could change. One evening, she tried on one of her old dresses. It was still tight, but she didn't care. She stood in front of the mirror, touching her stomach. "Almost there," she whispered to herself. When Emeka walked in, she turned around shyly. "What do you think?" "I think it's starting to fit again." He stared for a second, then frowned. "You should stop forcing yourself into things that don't fit. You look uncomfortable." Her smile faded instantly. "I was just trying to—" "Chi, please," he interrupted. "Stop trying so hard. You're making it worse." That night, she cried quietly while he slept. She had given up her comfort, her peace, and even her meals just to please him. But nothing she did ever seemed right. A few days later, Emeka invited some of his friends over for drinks. They sat in the living room laughing loudly. Chidinma came out to greet them with a tray of snacks. "Good evening," she said politely. "You're welcome." One of the friends smiled. "Ah, Madam Chi, long time. You're looking fresh." They laughed lightly, but Emeka's laugh was louder. "Fresh? You mean she's eating all my profits?" Everyone burst into laughter. Chidinma froze, holding the tray tightly. Her heart pounded. She smiled weakly, pretending it didn't hurt, and turned back toward the kitchen. In the kitchen, her hands trembled as she placed the tray down. Tears blurred her eyes. She could still hear their laughter echoing through the walls. When the guests left, she walked to the bedroom and found Emeka removing his wristwatch. "Why did you say that in front of them?" she asked quietly. He looked confused. "Say what?" "That I'm eating all your profits." He shrugged. "It was just a joke." "It wasn't funny, Emeka. You embarrassed me." He turned to her. "Chi, you take things too seriously. Can't I joke in my own house again?" She clenched her fists. "You don't joke about someone you love." "Love?" he said, laughing bitterly. "Love doesn't mean I should lie to you. You've changed. You don't even look like the woman I married." Her eyes filled with tears. "I carried your child, Emeka. I gave up my job to raise our family. You used to say I was your blessing." He grabbed his jacket. "Well, blessings don't come with weight gain." She gasped softly. "You're becoming cruel." He stopped at the door. "And you're becoming lazy." When he left, she sat on the floor, holding her face in her hands. It was hard to believe this was the same man who once held her close every night. Days turned into weeks. Emeka grew colder. He no longer noticed when she cooked his favorite meals. He no longer cared when she tried to talk. When he came home, he would go straight to the guest room or sit on his phone for hours. One morning, she decided to confront him properly. As he prepared for work, she stood in front of the door. "Emeka, we need to talk." He sighed, tightening his tie. "About what again?" "About us. You treat me like a stranger. You don't smile at me. You don't even eat my food. What happened to us?" He laughed dryly. "What happened?" "You happened." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "You stopped being attractive. You stopped being exciting. I go out and see women who take care of themselves, and then I come home to this." Her voice shook. "Emeka, I'm your wife. I carried your child. How can you talk to me like this?" "I'm just being honest," he said, grabbing his car keys. "Maybe you need to hear the truth for once." "Then say it," she said softly. "Say what you really feel." He looked her straight in the eyes. "I feel trapped." The words hit her like a slap. She stood frozen, unable to breathe. He opened the door. "Please move. I'm late." She stepped aside quietly and watched him leave. When the door closed, she sank to the floor, tears pouring down her face. Her little boy crawled toward her, laughing innocently. She wiped her tears quickly and forced a smile. "It's okay, my baby. Mama's fine." But she wasn't fine, not even close. Later that week, she visited her mother in the village. Mama noticed the sadness in her eyes immediately. "Chidinma, what is it? Are you sick?" She shook her head. "No, Mama." "Then what's wrong? You've lost weight." Chidinma hesitated. "It's Emeka. He doesn't love me like before." Mama sighed deeply. "Men can change, my daughter, but don't lose yourself because of it. You're beautiful, with or without his approval." Those words gave her small comfort. When she returned to Enugu, she tried to stay strong. She started reading books about self-care and joined a church group for mothers. One evening, while attending a small church meeting, a woman shared her story about how her husband once mocked her weight until she turned her pain into strength. Chidinma listened closely, tears in her eyes. For the first time in a long while, she felt hope again. Maybe she could find her light again. When she returned home, Emeka was on the phone, laughing loudly. Yes, bro. I told her to start running because I can't carry her weight alone," he said, unaware that she was standing at the door. Her heart broke again. She turned quietly and went into the bedroom. The next morning, she made breakfast as usual and left a small note on the table that read, "I'm still your wife, Emeka. I'm trying to be better, but please, remember I'm human too." When Emeka saw the note, he smiled faintly, but pride wouldn't let him change. He told himself he was only saying the truth. He told himself that she needed to work harder, but deep down, a small part of him missed the old days. The laughter, the warmth, the gentle woman who looked at him like he was her whole world. That night, as he lay in bed alone, the silence of the house pressed down on him. He could hear his baby's soft cries from the other room and Chidinma's quiet humming as she tried to calm him. He closed his eyes. But sleep didn't come easily. Somewhere inside him, guilt began to grow, but pride pushed it away. In the days that followed, the distance between them turned into a wall. They lived under the same roof, but in two different worlds. Chidinma began to spend more time at her church meetings. She didn't argue anymore. She stopped begging for his attention. She simply became quiet. One night, when she was in the kitchen washing plates, Emeka walked in. He looked around and said, "Chi, you used to keep this kitchen cleaner. What's happening to you?" She turned to him slowly. "What's happening to me?" "Maybe I'm just tired, Emeka. Tired of trying to please someone who can never be pleased." He frowned. "What do you mean by that?" She looked at him sadly. "I mean, I'm done chasing your approval. If you can't see my worth, that's your loss. Emeka was taken aback. For the first time, she sounded different, calm but strong. He laughed awkwardly. Oh, so now you're bold? She smiled faintly. No, I'm just done being silent. He didn't reply. He simply walked away, pretending not to care. But her words echoed in his head long after she left the kitchen. That night, Chidinma prayed quietly. God, give me strength. If he can't love me the way I am, help me love myself enough to survive it. The next morning, she woke up with a strange peace. She packed her gym shoes and whispered to her baby, Mama will make you proud. And for the first time in months, she smiled, not because of Emeka, but for herself. The next few weeks in the Okafor household were filled with quiet tension. Emeka and Chidinma still lived under the same roof, but they barely spoke. Their conversations were short, sharp, and cold. Even their little son, who used to laugh loudly in the evenings, had become strangely quiet. Every morning, Chidinma still prepared Emeka's breakfast. She did it not because he appreciated it, but because she couldn't bring herself to stop caring. She still hoped that one day he would smile at her again and say, Chi, thank you. But that day never came. One Friday morning, as he prepared for work, Emeka said suddenly, There's a birthday party tomorrow at Royal Palms Hotel. I want you to come with me. Chidinma froze. You want me to come? He nodded, adjusting his wristwatch. Yes, it's my friend Tony's party. All our old friends will be there. Her heart leaped with cautious hope. Oh, okay. Should I wear the blue gown you bought me last year? He looked her over slowly. No, that one is too tight on you now. Try something dark, maybe black. It will hide things. Her smile fell a little, but she nodded. All right. When he left, she looked at her reflection in the mirror. The hope she had just felt a minute ago faded into sadness, but she decided to stay positive. She would dress nicely, smile, and pretend nothing was wrong. Maybe if she looked confident, he'd see her differently again. The next evening, she took extra time getting ready. She wore a long black gown with gold earrings. She tied her hair neatly and brushed light powder across her cheeks. When she was done, she looked into the mirror and whispered, You're still beautiful, Chi. Don't let him make you forget that. When Emeka came out of the room, wearing his neatly pressed shirt and a designer perfume, he paused for a second. You're ready. She turned and smiled softly. Yes. He looked at her for a moment but said nothing kind. Let's go. We're already late. They got into the car in silence. The ride to the hotel felt long. Chidinma tried to make small talk. I heard Tony's wife just gave birth. We should get them a gift. Emeka didn't respond. He kept his eyes on the road, pretending not to hear. When they arrived, the hotel lights sparkled beautifully. Music filled the air, and laughter echoed from the open hall. People were dressed in bright colors, dancing and taking pictures. Chidinma smiled nervously as they walked in. She hadn't been to a party in months. Emeka, my guy! Tony shouted as soon as he saw him. The two men hugged and laughed loudly. Ah, Chidinma, it's been ages. Tony's wife Clara said warmly. Chidinma smiled. It's so good to see you again. They sat at a large table filled with Emeka's old friends, the same people who once admired their marriage. As the music played, drinks flowed, and laughter grew louder, Chidinma tried to enjoy herself. She danced a little in her chair and even laughed at a few jokes. For a moment, it almost felt like old times. But then Emeka leaned close and whispered, Don't move too much. People are looking. She frowned slightly. Looking at what? At you. Just relax, okay? Her heart sank. She stopped smiling immediately. Minutes later, the DJ shouted, Couples, it's time to dance. Let's see the lovebirds in the room. Everyone cheered. Tony and Clara got up first, holding hands. Others followed. Someone called out, Emeka, go and dance with your wife now. People clapped and laughed. Emeka smiled awkwardly and turned to her. Come on, Chi. Let's just go for a minute. She smiled shyly and stood up, happy that he was finally asking her to dance. As they stepped onto the floor, the slow rhythm filled the air. Couples swayed gently, holding each other. But as soon as they started dancing, Emeka whispered through clenched teeth, Don't hold me too tight. You're sweating. She looked at him, confused. Emeka, I'm not... Just keep your distance, he muttered. She bit her lip and forced a smile as others watched them. From the outside, they looked fine, but her heart was breaking. Then came the moment that would change everything. As they returned to their seats, one of Emeka's friends joked loudly, "Ah, Emeka, you better take care of Madam O. She's enjoying too much food these days." Laughter exploded around the table. Emeka, instead of defending her, laughed even louder. "My brother, I tell her every day she's turning into a drum." Everyone laughed harder. The hall echoed with noise. Chidinma froze. Her face burned. The laughter stabbed her like knives. She looked around. People were watching her, whispering, giggling behind their glasses. Her hands shook. She wanted to disappear. She stood up slowly, her voice trembling. "Excuse me," she said softly and walked toward the restroom. As soon as she entered, the tears came like rain. She leaned on the sink, staring at her reflection. Her makeup was ruined. Her heart felt like it had been crushed. She whispered to herself, "Why, Emeka? Why would you do this to me in front of everyone?" Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Ngozi. "You okay? I saw you step out." Chidinma replied with shaking hands. "No, I want to go home." She stayed in the restroom for a long time, hoping he would come and check on her. But he didn't. When she finally stepped back out, she saw him laughing loudly with some of his friends, drink in hand, completely unbothered. She walked up to him quietly and said, "Emeka, I'm ready to leave." He frowned. "Why?" "The party just started." "I don't feel well." He sighed, annoyed. "You and your moods again." "Fine, let's go." They left the hall in silence. Inside the car, the air was heavy. She finally spoke. "Why would you say that, Emeka? Why would you call me a drum in front of everyone?" He shrugged, eyes still on the road. "It was just a joke." Her voice rose slightly. "A joke? You humiliated me. Everyone laughed at me." "Stop overreacting, Chi. You're too emotional." "I'm your wife," she cried. "You're supposed to protect me, not shame me." He sighed. "Then stop giving people something to talk about." Her jaw dropped. "So it's my fault?" "Look," he said sharply, "I told you to lose weight. You didn't listen. Don't blame me for speaking the truth." She stared at him in disbelief. "You've become cruel, Emeka." He smirked slightly. "Maybe I'm just honest." Tears rolled down her cheeks as she turned her face toward the window. The rest of the ride was silent. When they got home, she went straight to the bedroom and began packing her clothes into a small suitcase. Emeka watched her from the doorway. "What are you doing?" She didn't answer. She folded another dress carefully and placed it inside the bag. "I'm talking to you," he said, his voice rising. "What's this drama now?" She stopped and turned to him, her voice calm but firm. "I can't do this anymore, Emeka. I've tried. I've begged. I've cried. But you don't see me as your wife anymore." He crossed his arms. "Oh, so you're leaving now? Just like that?" "Yes," she said quietly, "because staying here is killing me." He laughed bitterly. "You think walking away will solve anything? Go ahead, but don't come back when you realize no one else will take you." She zipped her bag slowly, looked at him one last time and said, "I loved you when you had nothing, Emeka. When all you had was a dream, but now you love only yourself in your mirror." He said nothing. He just stood there, pride covering the small crack of guilt in his heart. As she walked past him, he muttered under his breath, "Go, I'll find someone better." Those words sliced through her like a knife, but she didn't stop. She lifted her suitcase, opened the front door, and stepped out. Outside, the night air was cold, but it felt freeing. For the first time in years, she could breathe without fear. As the taxi pulled away, she looked back at the house she once called home. She saw the light still on in the window and whispered softly to herself, "One day, he'll understand what he lost." Back inside the house, Emeka poured himself a drink and sat on the couch. The silence was deafening. For a brief moment, he thought about calling her back, but his pride wouldn't let him. He told himself, "She'll come back. She has nowhere else to go." But deep inside, something in him felt empty, the kind of emptiness that even success or money couldn't fill. The next morning when he woke up, the house was unusually quiet. There was no smell of breakfast, no baby laughter, no soft footsteps. He looked around and realized she was truly gone. Her clothes, her shoes, her soft laughter, all gone. He sat on the edge of the bed and ran his hand through his hair. Good riddance, he muttered to himself. But the words didn't feel true. He turned on his phone and saw dozens of messages from friends who were still laughing about last night's joke. Some had even tagged him on social media, posting pictures from the party with captions like, "Emeka cracked us up last night." For the first time, the laughter didn't feel good. It felt ugly. It echoed in his ears like guilt. He scrolled down and saw one message from Tony that read, "Bro, maybe take it easy with the wife jokes." People felt bad for her. He stared at the screen for a long time before turning it off. That night, as he sat alone eating cold food, he noticed how quiet the house had become. No baby crying, no gentle voice calling his name, no one to greet him at the door. He thought about her last words. "I loved you when you had nothing." He tried to shake it off, but it wouldn't leave his mind. Days turned into weeks, and though he told people he was fine, he couldn't ignore the emptiness. Every room in the house reminded him of her cooking, her laughter, even her scent. But instead of admitting it, he hardened his heart. He told everyone who asked that she was too sensitive, too emotional, too difficult. And yet, late at night, when the house was dark and quiet, he would look at the empty side of the bed and whisper her name under his breath. But she was gone. And deep down, though he didn't say it out loud, Emeka knew. He was the one who pushed her away. After Chidinma left, the house felt like a shell. Emeka tried to fill the emptiness with work and noise. He went to parties, laughed with friends, and pretended he did not miss the small voice that used to call his name. He told himself he had done the right thing. He kept saying, "You cannot be seen with someone who makes you look small." Pride sat heavy on his chest like a coat he could not take off. Not long after, Emeka met Anita. She was tall, slim, and moved like someone who knew all the right angles for cameras. She wore clothes that shone and shoes that made a soft click when she walked. At first, they met at a launch party for a new club. Anita was with a group of models. Emeka was with his friends. She smiled at him, the kind of smile that made men listen. "Hi, I'm Anita," she said, extending her hand. Her voice was smooth and a little cold. "Emeka," he answered, standing a little taller. He liked the way she looked at him. He liked that she cared about how things looked. "You're beautiful." "Thank you," she said, and the smile stayed. She looked at his watch, at his shoes, and then back at him. "You look expensive." Emeka laughed, proud. Pride was a small seed that grew quickly in his heart. When he asked her out, she agreed. She liked the dresses, the parties, and the cameras. She liked the idea of being a trophy. Emeka liked that she turned heads. He told himself he was moving on. They dated for months. Emeka gave her gifts, a new phone, designer bags, a car with a ribbon on it. He wrote checks without counting. Friends said, "You've leveled up." Family said, "He is doing well." Emeka felt like a king again. His friends clapped him on the back. He laughed louder than before. Then he married Anita. The wedding was bright and loud. Cameras flashed, people clapped. Emeka stood at the front, chest puffed, and watched Anita walk down the aisle in a dress that fit like a dream. When they kissed, people cheered. Emeka felt like the whole world was approving him. At first, life with Anita was all sparkle. She loved the parties. She loved the trips. She loved how her hair shone in the pictures. Emeka took her to the best restaurants. He bought her a small apartment in Lekki and filled it with furniture she liked. He posted their pictures online and felt proud when people commented. "Look at us," he told his friends at a club one night. "I won." Anita laughed, sipping a drink. "You spoil me," she said, and that made him glow inside. But soon, small things began to show. Anita did not like Emeka's family manners. She did not understand the way his mother folded clothes or how his sister cooked the jollof rice with a little extra oil. She wanted food done her way. She wanted the house cleaned by helpers, not family hands. One evening, Emeka brought Anita to his mother's house for dinner. Mama Okafor stood at the door with warm hands and a wide smile. She hugged Emeka and then reached for Anita. "Welcome, my daughter," Mama said, her voice soft. Anita gave Mama a quick smile. She looked around at the simple furniture and the old pictures on the wall. She folded her mouth and whispered to Emeka, loud enough for him to hear, "This is not a place for me." Mama's face fell like a curtain. She stepped back slowly. "Emeka, do you hear?" she asked him later, walking him to the gate. He swallowed and smiled at his mother. "Mama, it's fine. Anita is just used to finer things." He did not want to tell his mother to hide the house. He wanted both worlds, his proud mother and the new life with Anita. But he never learned how to make both feel safe. At home, Anita said, "I am not one of your staff. I did not sign up to cook with your family. If you want me to be part of that life, you must change it." Her voice had no place for the small kindness that once filled his house. Emeka scolded his mother a little later for her clumsy spooning of the soup. "Mama, we have standards now," he said, but he said it like a child who had learned a new word and wanted to use it. He wanted to impress Anita, and so he pushed his mother's warmth away. Anita also liked to laugh at Emeka's old habits. He used to enjoy weekend visits to his mother, listening to her stories of when he was young. Now each story was an old stain on the clean picture Anita wanted. When Mama told a long story at dinner, Anita yawned. "Is she finished?" Anita asked, looking at Emeka as if he should fix the problem. Emeka smiled at Anita, his eyes shining. He said, "Sorry, Mama's old. She can be long." Mom only nodded and kept her eyes steady. She had raised a son who loved her once. She did not understand how easily he could stand in a room and make his own mother feel small. Money came and went in a different way with Anita. She liked fine things and she liked them often. She shopped without looking at price tags. She returned shoes that did not fit and asked for something more special. Emeka paid for it. He told himself he was giving her the best of life. He wanted people to see him with her and admire him. One weekend, Anita called a friend and said, "Get me everything on the list. If he loves me, he will not mind." She was not hiding it. When the bills came, they were high. He told himself it was temporary. He told himself he had made the right choice. He told himself that a beautiful life was worth the cost. He said these words to his friends, and his friends clapped. They said, "You are living your dream." At first, Emeka overlooked the cold in Anita's eyes when she talked to his sister or mother. He laughed off the sharp words she used when his younger cousin told a story he liked. He called it standing up for herself. He did not see the small cuts she left on the hearts of the people who had loved him before. One day, Anita and his sister had a fight about a hand towel. His sister wanted to dry the dishes, and Anita snapped at her for touching the thin towel. The argument rose like lightning, sharp and quick. "You cannot touch my towels," Anita said. "They are mine." "You are in my brother's house," his sister answered. "Here, we share." Anita put her hand on her chest and looked offended. "Share? I did not sign up for that." Emeka stepped between them and said in a kinder voice than he felt, "Please calm down. We are family." Anita turned to him and said, "I am not family. I am the reason you are this man now. I deserve respect." Emeka felt proud when she said that. He wanted everyone to see how lucky he was. He wanted to be admired again. So he let his sister leave the room, jaw clenched, eyes full of hurt. He did not stop Anita. He did not see that letting this happen would make his family step away, like leaves falling from a branch. In private, Anita sometimes showed a different side. She mocked the way he loved old songs from his childhood. She laughed when he kept an old photograph of his first car. "Why keep the tickets of a show from 10 years ago?" she asked. "If you are a man now, throw away the past." That hurt him too. He loved those small things because they felt like roots. He had not known roots could be taken away by a smile and a hand on his arm. He would go home and hold the photograph and feel strange, like he had given up a piece of himself. There were nights when Anita would not be home. She spent nights out with friends, posted pictures, and wrote short messages about fun times. When he called her late at night to ask where she was, she would say, "I will come home when I feel like it." He would lie awake waiting and tell himself he was a man who could not be needy. He told himself to be strong. Slowly, the cracks in what he thought was a perfect life began to show. Anita was not kind to his family. She did not care for the small things that made his home feel like home. She did not love his past. She loved the present where cameras shone. Still, Emeka refused to see these cracks as danger signs. He wrapped himself in vanity and told his friends, "She is mine. She chose me." He would stand beside Anita at events and watch how people stared, and his chest swelled. When his friends whispered about how lucky he was, he believed them. Pride is a loud friend. Meanwhile, Chidinma was living in a small house in a different part of the city. It was modest and smelled like fresh stew and soap. She rented a small room and kept only what she needed. She had no interest in posting pictures or being noticed. She wanted peace. At first, she missed the big house and the old life. She missed the way her son would climb into her lap and fall asleep. But she had her boy, and she had her strength. She did not need applause. She needed to be steady for him. She woke up early each day. She walked the quiet streets, and the sun met her face kindly. She joined a small church group and prayed with women who had their own pains. They cooked together and shared stories. They called themselves sisters. When she returned home, she would sit and plan small things to do to make money. She started making small meals and selling them to neighbors. She made akara and fried plantain, and sometimes she sold a pot of soup to a busy office worker. The money was not much, but it was honest. She used it to pay rent, buy school books for her son, and save a little. Ngozi came often and helped with the baby. "You are strong, Chi," Ngozi would say. "Look at you. You are working." Chidinma smiled and said, "I am trying. I want my son to see his mother stand on her feet." She also began walking every morning and doing small exercises. She did not do it to please anyone. She did it because her body felt better when she moved. Her face slowly started to look like the old Chidinma again. Not the one who lived for pictures, but the one who could laugh from deep inside. At church, the pastor said one Sunday, "Your worth is not the number on the scale. Your worth is the kindness you carry." Chidinma listened, and the words soaked into her like gentle rain. She started teaching a neighbor's little children how to read for a small fee. She found joy in small things. She learned to be proud of her morning sweat and the sound of her own laugh. She began to sleep without the weight of other people's opinions on her heart. Sometimes she saw pictures of Emeka with Anita online. He looked happy in the photos. She felt a small pain, but it did not crush her. She had learned how to hold pain without letting it break her. One day Ngozi said, "Chi, you are glowing." Chidinma touched her cheeks and smiled. "I am not doing it for anyone," she said. "I am doing it for my son, for me." Back in Emeka's world, the shine had not lasted long. Anita's complaints grew. She always wanted more. She did not like the neighborhood where his mother still lived. She did not care for his small traditions. She wanted to be at the center of photographs, not beside a life that smelled of jollof and boiled yam. When Emeka tried to tell himself that these were small problems, Anita would answer, "If you cannot make my life perfect, then what are you good for?" She said it as if he was supposed to have the magic to change the whole world. At night, when Emeka watched television alone, he would sometimes think of the woman who had carried his child. He would remember the way she laughed at a joke only he remembered. He would hold that memory like a small, warm stone. But then Anita would come home, and he would show her the new watch on his wrist and forget. One evening, Anita said as she packed another bag, "I'm going to Dubai next month. You should come with me. But if you are busy, don't worry. I have friends." Emeka felt a prickle in his chest and swallowed. "I will try." She looked at him and smiled. Not the warm smile of comfort, but a bright smile for the camera. "Good," she said. He wanted to stand up and say what his heart felt, but pride and fear kept his mouth closed. He wanted to be a man of success in the eyes of others, and he thought Anita made that easier. So he kept telling himself that this was the life he wanted. He told himself the cracks were just dust that could be cleaned. He failed to see how dust can grow into something that covers everything if you do not sweep it away. The house was full of new things, but it was not full of the things that make life soft and real. It had new furniture, but not laughter that reached the corners. It had new clothes, but not the smell of a mother's cooking. It had new pictures on social media, but not the small hands of a child tugging at his shirt. And somewhere in another small house, Chidinma made a kara and smiled for a small coin, taught a child to read, and walked under the sun that did not care who owned a car or who bought a dress. She found a quiet power in living small and honest. She did not see herself as lower. She saw herself as steady. Emeka kept the shiny life and the hollow compliments. He told his friends he had won. He told himself he had fixed everything. But inside, a new feeling began to grow. Not sorrow exactly, but an awareness. It crept into the quiet moments. He could not name it. For now, he kept smiling beside Anita, and she kept looking perfect beside him. But small stones were already being placed in the path he walked. Stones that might one day trip him if he did not see them. And Chidinma, who had left because love had become harsh, was learning how to be kind to herself again. She had no eyes for trophies. She had only eyes for the child on her lap and the work of her hands. That, she thought, was enough to build a new life. For a while, Emeka kept pretending everything was fine. From the outside, it looked like he had the dream life. Big cars, a beautiful wife, a big house, and pictures on social media that made people say, God, when? But inside that house, things were not as perfect as they seemed. It started with little things. Anita stopped waiting for Emeka to come home. Sometimes he would return late from work and meet her asleep, or worse, not even home at all. She no longer cared to ask how his day went. Her eyes were always on her phone, scrolling, laughing, chatting with people he didn't know. One night he came home early and found her in the living room, dressed in a short gown, laughing on a video call. He dropped his keys on the table and cleared his throat. "Who are you talking to?" She rolled her eyes and put her phone face down. "A friend. Do I need permission now?" Emeka sat down slowly. "Can't you respect yourself and this marriage? Look at what you're wearing, and laughing like that on video with some man." She stood up, arms folded. "First of all, I'm not doing anything wrong. Second, you knew what I was before you married me. Don't act surprised now." He stared at her. "So you're saying I should accept disrespect because you're beautiful?" Anita smirked. "Exactly. You didn't marry me because I'm a cook or a housemaid. You married me because I make you look good." That night, Emeka lay awake in bed thinking. For the first time, he started to feel a deep ache in his chest. Not anger, not pride, just an emptiness. Weeks passed. The fights grew louder. The silence between them grew colder. Then came the warning signs. Emeka's company started facing small issues. 2 of his top clients pulled out of deals. A shipment got delayed. One of his suppliers messed up an order. It was nothing serious at first, just small fires here and there. But then things got worse. One morning his accountant called. "Sir, we need to talk. The last 3 transactions from the business account look suspicious." Emeka frowned. "What do you mean?" "They were large transfers. 2 to a luxury store in London, 1 to a personal account in another name. Over 35 million total." Emeka dropped his pen. "I didn't approve those." The accountant's voice was serious. "You may want to speak to your wife." He hung up and called Anita immediately. She didn't pick. He called again. Nothing. He rushed home in panic. When he opened the door, the house was empty. No sound, no perfume, no heels on the floor. He went into the bedroom. Her clothes were gone. Her shoes, her bags, her jewelry. The drawers were empty. His chest tightened. "Anita," he called out. Nothing. He picked his phone and opened her Instagram page. She had posted a picture just 20 minutes earlier, on a plane, holding champagne, wearing sunglasses, and smiling with the caption, "New season, new country, new life." His heart dropped. He looked again. The comments were filled with fire emojis and boss lady cheers. He fell onto the bed, breathing fast. His eyes scanned the room again, trying to understand what just happened. Then his phone rang. It was Tony, his friend. "Guy," Tony said quickly, "I don't want to panic you, but I just saw Anita at the airport. She was with some man. Tall guy, looked like she was flying business class." Emeka didn't speak. His lips were dry. "Bro, are you there?" "Yes," he whispered. "I'm here." When the call ended, Emeka just sat there. His house suddenly felt too big, too quiet, too empty. That night he didn't eat, he didn't drink, he didn't even cry. He just sat in the darkness, staring at nothing. The next morning, the bank called again. Another 30 million had been withdrawn from his joint account with Anita before she left. His lawyer confirmed that unless he could prove fraud, it would be hard to get the money back. Days passed. Emeka didn't go to work. He ignored calls. His mother came to visit and found him sitting in the same spot, unshaven, unbathed, and silent. "Emeka," she said softly, placing her hand on his shoulder. "What happened?" He looked at her with tired eyes. "Mama, I made a big mistake." She sat beside him, holding his hand. "Tell me, my son." He took a deep breath. "I left a woman who loved me for one who loved only herself. I thought beauty was enough. I thought showing off was better than peace. Now I have nothing. Nothing at all." Mama sighed, pain in her eyes. "I warned you. I told you. But you said she made you look good." He nodded slowly. "She made me look good, yes. But Chidinma, she made me feel good. I didn't know the difference then. Now I do." Tears welled up in Mama's eyes. "You broke her, Emeka. You pushed her away. And now you see." He held his head in his hands. "Mama, she's gone. And I deserve it. All of it." For the next few weeks, Emeka tried to fix the damage. He met with bankers, with lawyers, and with business partners. But the news had already spread. People started pulling back. His once loyal staff began to leave one by one. The business was falling apart. And all the while, Chidinma stayed quiet. She never called him, never posted anything about him. She lived her life gently and moved in silence. One afternoon, Emeka sat in his car outside a supermarket, waiting for his bank card to load. He was now careful with every naira. Then he saw her, Chidinma. She stepped out of a small car holding a basket. She wore a plain blouse and jeans. Her hair was tied in a scarf. She looked simple, but peaceful. There was no makeup, no jewelry, no flash. But she glowed. She didn't see him. She walked past him with her son, his son, holding her hand. The boy laughed at something she said. She smiled down at him. Emeka's chest tightened. He rolled down his window just a little and listened. "Mummy, can we buy juice?" the boy asked. "Juice only if you promise to eat your vegetables later," she replied, laughing. The boy nodded. "I promise." She bent and kissed his forehead. "That's my big boy." Emeka's hands gripped the steering wheel. He watched them walk away slowly, gently. No drama, no noise, just peace. And in that moment, it hit him harder than everything Anita had stolen. Chidinma was never the problem. He was. He had thrown away gold while chasing shiny glass. He sat there quietly, eyes wet, heart aching. He didn't know if he would ever get her back. But one thing was clear now. The cracks in his life had become a mirror, showing him who he truly was. And he didn't like what he saw. After Emeka saw Chidinma outside the supermarket with their son, he couldn't sleep that night. He tossed and turned on the bed that used to feel big and proud. Now it felt cold and empty. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, smiling softly at their son. That smile wasn't forced. It wasn't fake. It wasn't painted on for a picture. It was real, calm, peaceful, and it broke him. He sat up in bed and looked around the room. All the expensive things he once chased now looked useless. The big TV, the imported mirror, the perfume bottles Anita left behind. All of them meant nothing now. He stood up, walked to the mirror, and stared at himself. "You used to be a man," he whispered. "What happened to you?" The next morning, Chidinma woke up at 5:30 a.m. as usual. She tied her scarf, wore her jogging shoes, and stepped out quietly. She jogged slowly down the quiet street, her breathing steady. As she ran, she thought about her journey, how she had come from a home where she was insulted daily, to this quiet peace she now lived in. She didn't cry anymore. She didn't beg anyone anymore. She had learned how to stand. After her run, she returned home, bathed her son, and got him ready for school. "Mummy, will you come and pick me today?" he asked while tying his shoelaces. Chidinma smiled. "Of course. And if you behave well, I'll buy you Puff Puff on the way home." "Yay!" he cheered. They laughed together as she led him outside to wait for his school bus. When he was gone, Chidinma returned inside and sat down with her notepad. It was time to plan the day's orders. Her small cooking business had grown. What started as a few neighbors asking for soup had now become a full daily business. She cooked meals in coolers and delivered them to offices. Egusi, okra, jollof rice, stew. Customers trusted her. Her food was always clean, always fresh, and always full of flavor. Ngozi came over around 10 a.m., as usual. My sister, your stew is smelling too nice today. You want to make me jealous? Chidima laughed. Help me pack the jollof first before it burns. Ngozi tied her wrapper tighter and grabbed a spoon. One day, you'll open a restaurant, and I'll be the madam at the front desk. Chidima smiled. Amino. By afternoon, all the orders were gone. The kitchen was clean. Chidinma sat on the veranda, drinking cold water. Ngozi joined her. Chi, I saw your ex-husband yesterday. Chidinma didn't look surprised. Where? By the filling station. He looked tired, like someone who hasn't slept in weeks. Chidinma stayed silent. Ngozi continued. He just stood there in his car, staring into space. I greeted him, but he barely answered. Chidinma sipped her water. He made his choice, Ngozi. I know, Ngozi said, but it's like he's finally seeing what he lost. Chidinma looked out at the road. He's not my problem anymore. I cried enough. I begged enough. I broke enough. Not again. Ngozi nodded. I'm proud of you, Chi, the way you've handled everything. It's inspiring. Chidinma gave a small smile. I didn't do it to impress anyone. I did it so I wouldn't lose myself. That evening, she went to a small women's group meeting at church. They sat in a circle, talking about business, life, and healing. One of the women said, sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the ones you love the most. Chidinma raised her hand. Yes, but healing is when you stop waiting for their apology and start living like they never had power over you. Everyone clapped softly. The leader nodded. That's powerful, Chidinma. She smiled gently. She wasn't trying to be wise. She was just speaking her truth. After the meeting, one of the women approached her. Chi, can you teach me how to start a small food business? I've been struggling since my husband lost his job. Chidinma nodded. Come to my place tomorrow. We'll start small, together. Helping others gave her joy. It made her feel useful. Meanwhile, Amika's business continued to fall apart. Clients who once waited for his call now ignored his messages. Some stopped picking altogether. His staff grew restless. One of his workers, David, knocked on his office door. Sir, the delivery van broke down again, and the driver says we still haven't paid him for last month. Amika rubbed his forehead. Tell him I'll handle it. David hesitated. Sir, we need to act fast. If we don't deliver tomorrow, they might cancel the whole deal. Amika nodded slowly. Okay, I'll look for a solution. When David left, Amika sank into his chair. He looked at the table. The glass award with his name on it still sat there. Top Businessman of the Year. He stared at it and whispered, that was 3 years ago. He picked up his phone and scrolled through old photos. He saw one of himself and Chidinma at the hospital the day their son was born. Chidinma was sweaty, tired, but smiling with joy. Amika had one arm around her, the other holding the tiny baby wrapped in a blue cloth. He stared at the photo. His eyes grew wet. He thought back to all the nights she stayed up with the baby, all the meals she cooked without complaining, all the times she smiled even when he ignored her. He remembered the day he called her a drum in front of people. He closed his eyes in shame. The guilt hit him hard. He picked up his phone again. For the first time in a long while, he typed her name in his contacts. Her number was still there. He stared at it. His finger hovered over the call button, but he stopped. What would he even say? I'm sorry. Would that fix anything? He threw the phone on the table and buried his face in his hands. That night, Chidinma prayed with her son. Dear God, her son said, thank you for Mummy and for her nice food and for my puff-puff. Amen. Chidinma smiled. Amen. When he fell asleep, she sat by the window, looking up at the moon. She whispered to herself, I survived. I'm not the same woman who begged a man to love her. I found peace without noise. I found strength in my scars. She didn't hate Amika anymore. She didn't wish him pain. But she also knew she didn't owe him a second chance. The next day, as she walked home from the market, she heard her name. Chidinma. She turned. Amika stood beside his car, looking older, thinner and tired. She froze. What are you doing here? I was passing by, he said quickly. I saw you. I wanted to say something. She raised an eyebrow. What is it? He stepped closer, his voice shaky. I'm sorry for everything. She didn't say anything. He continued. I was proud. I was stupid. I didn't see your value until I lost you. I thought beauty was everything. I didn't know peace was more important. Chidima looked at him quietly. I'm not angry anymore, Amika, but your sorry doesn't erase the pain. I know, he said, nodding. I just wanted to tell you, because I see it now. I see what I destroyed. She looked down, then back at him. Thank you for saying it, but I've moved on. My life is full now. Not perfect, but full. He looked like he wanted to say more, but he didn't. He stepped back and nodded. Take care of yourself, Chidinma. She nodded. You too. As she walked away, her heart didn't feel heavy. It felt light, like a chapter had truly closed. And behind her, Emika stood by the road, watching her walk with grace. He had once called her a burden. Now he saw that she was the blessing he never deserved, and she was rising higher, with or without him. 1 month passed after Amika stopped Chidima by the roadside. He had hoped she would call him after that short conversation. He kept checking his phone, expecting to see her name pop up. But she didn't call. She didn't text. She didn't come looking for him. Instead, life continued for her, and it was growing fast. Chidinma's small food business had become something much bigger. Through word of mouth, people from offices, banks, and even a TV station started ordering her food. Someone had posted a picture of her packaging online with the caption, "Best home-cooked lunch in Enugu." That single post brought a flood of new customers. Her phone rang constantly with new orders. One Friday afternoon, she was invited to speak at a women's business seminar. The event was organized by a big NGO that supported women entrepreneurs. Ngozi nearly screamed when she read the invitation. Chi, do you know what this means? Do you know who comes to these events? Chidinma smiled, folding the letter. I just want to tell my story. If it helps someone, that's enough for me. Ngozi placed her hands on her hips. Enough for you? This is your time to shine. You're going to show them what strength really looks like. Chidinma laughed. Okay, as long as you promise not to cry when I talk. Cry? Me? Who told you I cry? I'm a hard woman. They both burst into laughter. The event was set for the next week in a big hall inside one of the top hotels in Enugu. On the day of the event, Chidinma wore a simple but elegant navy blue dress that hugged her in the right places. Her hair was braided neatly and her skin glowed. She didn't wear too much makeup, just a little powder and lip gloss. She didn't need anything more. Her confidence was enough. Ngozi drove her to the event. On the way, she kept glancing at her friend. Chi, are you sure you're not nervous? Chidinma smiled. A little, but I'll be fine. As they arrived at the hotel, photographers stood at the entrance, snapping pictures of speakers and invited guests. Inside the large hall, seats were neatly arranged in rows. A big banner at the front read, Women Who Rise, Stories of Strength and Growth. Chidinma's name was the third on the list of speakers. She sat at the front row, trying to stay calm. What she didn't know was that Amika was also at the event. He wasn't invited. He didn't even know Chidinma was going to speak. He was there to represent a company he was trying to partner with. The company had booked a small exhibition table near the back of the hall. He wore a plain black suit and held a folder under his arm. His face looked worn out, and his beard was beginning to grow in patches. He stood quietly, avoiding the cameras, watching people walk in. Then he heard a whisper from a group of ladies near him. That's her, the woman who built a food brand from her kitchen, Chidinma Okafor. His heart jumped. He turned quickly. And there she was, walking up the stage holding the microphone. The crowd clapped loudly. Phones went up. Lights flashed. Emika didn't blink. He just stared. She stood tall, the microphone in her hand, her eyes scanning the crowd. She had no idea he was there. Good afternoon, everyone, she began, her voice steady. My name is Chidinma. A few years ago, I was just a housewife, sitting at home with a newborn, trying to hold on to a marriage that was already breaking. The room went quiet. I used to cry myself to sleep. I begged to be seen. I begged to be heard. I begged to be loved. But the more I begged, the more invisible I became. Emika closed his eyes. His hands trembled slightly. Chidinma continued. Then one day I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. I had given up everything, even my self-respect. That was the day I decided to change. Not for anyone, not for revenge, but for my peace. The crowd nodded, some women wiping their eyes. I started small, with a cooler and one order of okra soup. Then came another and another. I used what I had, my hands, my heart, and my pain. She paused and smiled gently. Today I employ 3 other women. We cook together, we laugh together, and we lift each other. What I lost in that house, I found in this journey. The crowd clapped again, louder this time. Sometimes life will break you, but you get to choose what you do with the pieces. I chose to build something. More applause. Thank you. She stepped down from the stage as the hall erupted in a standing ovation. Cameras followed her. Reporters scribbled notes. And Mika still hadn't moved. His chest felt tight. He couldn't breathe properly. He moved slowly through the crowd, keeping a distance but following her with his eyes. Chidinma stood near a group of women, taking pictures and answering questions. Her face glowed with pride. Then for a split second, their eyes met. Chidinma froze. Emeka did too. She didn't move. Neither did he. Ngozi turned, saw Emeka, and narrowed her eyes. What's he doing here? Chidinma whispered. I don't know. Emeka walked slowly toward them. His hands were empty. No folder, no pride. Just his eyes filled with something close to shame. He stopped a few feet away. Chidinma, he said softly. She didn't smile. She didn't frown. She just looked at him, calm, steady. You were amazing up there, he said. You've grown into someone even stronger than I remember. She nodded. Thank you. He hesitated. I didn't come here because of you. I didn't know you were speaking, but now, I'm glad I came. Ngozi crossed her arms. What do you want, Emeka? He looked at her, then back at Chidinma. Nothing, just to say, I'm proud of you. That's all. Chidinma studied his face. It took losing everything for you to see me, Emeka. But by the time you opened your eyes, I had already wiped my tears. He nodded. I know. There was silence. He took a step back. I'll go now. I wanted to say that. He turned to leave. Emeka, she called out gently. He stopped. She walked up to him and stood close enough for only him to hear. I forgave you long ago, she said. Not for you, but for me. I needed to be free. And I am. I'm free now. He looked at her with tears in his eyes. I hope you're happy, Chidinma. She gave a soft smile. I am. He nodded. Good. Then he turned and walked away. Chidinma stood still, watching him go. Ngozi stepped beside her. Are you okay? She nodded. Yes, that was closure. They walked out of the hall together, the sun shining outside. Reporters chased after her. More photos were taken, but Chidinma didn't care about the cameras anymore. She had already taken the most important picture, one of her standing tall, even after being broken. She had risen, and this time she was not coming down. The day after the event, Chidinma sat on her veranda, sipping warm tea. The morning was quiet and the sun had just begun to rise. Birds chirped on the fence. The air smelled like wet sand from the rain that had fallen overnight. She felt calm, like someone who had dropped a heavy load after carrying it for too long. Her phone buzzed with new messages. Congratulations from people who had watched her speech, women asking for business advice, and even a few companies inviting her to speak at their programs. But she didn't reply to any of them yet. She sat still and allowed herself to breathe. Peace, she whispered. This is peace. Inside the house, her son giggled in his sleep. He had told her the night before, Mummy, you looked like a queen on that stage. She smiled at the memory. Across town in his own quiet room, Emeka sat alone at the dining table, staring at a half-eaten plate of rice. The house was silent. No footsteps, no baby laughter, no smell of stew or fried plantain. He had spent the entire night thinking about everything. He thought about the night he mocked Chidinma in public. He remembered the cold way he told her to leave. He remembered the day he signed the divorce papers without blinking, and now she had become everything he used to brag about. Only this time, it had nothing to do with her looks. She had become strong, respected, independent. She no longer needed him. His phone rang. It was his landlord. Hello? Emeka answered. Mr. Emeka, good morning. I've been patient with you, but this is 3 months now. If you don't pay by the end of the week, I'll be forced to act. I understand, Emeka said quietly. I'll try. He hung up, dropped the phone, and held his head. His account balance was low. His business was barely surviving. Clients had stopped trusting him. Partners had backed out of projects. His name didn't carry weight anymore. He had nothing left except regret. He got up slowly and walked into the living room. The pictures on the wall had all been taken down. The only thing left was an empty frame Anita had once bought with the words, "A home of greatness." He laughed bitterly. "Greatness?" he said out loud. "This is what pride gives you." That afternoon, he stepped out to withdraw the last 10,000 naira in his account. As he walked past the supermarket, he saw two school children eating meat pie in front of the shop. One of them was Chidinma's son. He stopped. The boy noticed him and waved. "Daddy!" Emeka's heart jumped. He walked over slowly. "My boy," he said, bending slightly. "How are you?" "I'm fine," the boy said. "We just came from school. Mummy went inside to buy soap." Emeka nodded. "That's good." A few seconds later, Chidinma came out of the supermarket, holding a nylon bag. She saw him, paused, and then walked forward. "Good afternoon," she said politely. "Good afternoon," Emeka replied. "I was just greeting him." She nodded. "I know." There was a pause. He looked at her properly. She looked tired but not weak. She looked like someone who worked hard but was at peace with her life. He swallowed hard. "I lost the shop," he said suddenly. Chidinma blinked. "The electronics shop?" He nodded. "Yes, the debts were too much. I sold it last week. I'm moving out of my apartment soon. I couldn't keep up with rent." She looked at him quietly, saying nothing. He forced a laugh. "Funny how things turn around, right? You were the one I used to mock for staying home. Now I'm the one with nothing." She didn't laugh. He continued. "You were right to leave, Chidinma. I didn't know your worth. I thought a slim waist and public praise were all that mattered. I threw away gold." Chidinma sighed. "It's not about what you threw away, Emeka. It's about what you refused to see when it was right in front of you." He looked down at his shoes. "I wish I could go back and undo everything. I wish I had been better." She nodded slowly. "We all wish for second chances, but sometimes what we need is a lesson that stays with us." Their son tugged her hand. "Mummy, can we go now?" She smiled at the boy. "Yes, baby." Emeka took a deep breath. "Can I ask for one thing?" She looked at him. "What?" "Don't hate me, please. I already hate myself enough." She nodded. "I don't hate you, Emeka. I just don't need you anymore. That's what makes it hard for you to breathe around me." His eyes watered. "You're right." She adjusted the shopping bag in her hand. "Take care of yourself." Then she walked away, holding her son's hand. Emeka stood there watching her leave. That was the last time he saw her up close. Over the next few months, Chidinma's business continued to grow. A local investor offered to support her with capital to open her first restaurant. She named it Cheese Kitchen of Hope. She employed 5 women from her church group. Together they cooked, cleaned, laughed, and grew. Her food was featured on a small TV program that celebrated local talents. One day during an interview on live TV, the host asked her, "What inspired you to start this journey?" Chidinma smiled gently. "Pain, rejection, humiliation. I turned them into fuel. I chose not to let what broke me keep me down." What would you say to women who are going through something similar? She thought for a moment. You are not your pain. You are not your past. And you don't need anyone's approval to rise. Stand up, even if your knees shake. You're stronger than you think. The video went viral. People reposted her speech. Newspapers wrote about her. A foundation even offered to help expand her brand into other cities. Meanwhile, Emeka now lived in a small rented one-room apartment behind a compound. He did odd jobs, sometimes selling electronics, sometimes helping people fix small appliances. Nobody recognized him as the once famous CEO. Nobody clapped when he walked into a room, but he no longer chased attention. The lesson had been learned. One rainy night, he sat on his old mattress, listening to the rain hit the zinc roof. He held a picture of Chidinma and their son from the old days. He whispered, "You were the blessing I didn't deserve." Karma had taught him the hardest lesson. And this time, it was too late to fix it. But in the heart of Enugu, where smells of pepper soup and jollof rice filled the air, a woman named Chidinma continued to rise. Not out of revenge, but out of peace. She no longer needed to prove anything. Her success spoke for itself. And for those who once mocked her, her silence was the loudest reply.